Every student is unique. Every student learns differently, and every student matters.
This is Idea Exchange, the Future of K-12 Education series, brought to you by McMillan Paston Smith Architecture.
Welcome to our Future of K-12 Education special three-part series with a focus on truly creating innovative environments for students today. In this series, we'll explore how good partnerships and a shared commitment can have tremendous impacts on students. We are focusing these discussions on a new regional education and training center known as the Continuum in Lake City, South Carolina. One of the many unique aspects of this facility is that it was developed in collaboration between the Darla Moore Foundation, Florence Darlington Technical College, Francis Marion University, and multiple school districts in the area. The center offers opportunities to students that no one of these public institutions could accommodate alone. The building's design embodies these organizations' shared missions, which is to provide college and career paths to students and to drive this region's social and economic success. The Continuum is open, inviting, and draws from this area's agricultural past, but it is also dynamic in its use of light, texture, and material. Interestingly enough, this facility was an abandoned Walmart, but today you would never know it. It would not be possible without the buy-in and collaboration from many of the people you will hear from in these next few episodes. In this episode, you'll hear from two K-12 school superintendents who have used their partnership with the Continuum to offer their students workforce development training and college dual credit in an expanded way that this rural region of South Carolina has never seen before. My co-host Michelle sat down with them to hear about how it all began.
Dr. Laura Hickson has been an educator for the past 30 years. Her positions have included classroom teachers at elementary and middle school levels, assistant principal, director of accountability and federal programs, assistant superintendent, and currently superintendent. Dr. Hickson has served as the superintendent for Florence County School District 3 for 6 years. She earned a bachelor's degree in elementary education from South Carolina State University in Orangeburg, South Carolina, a master's of education from Cambridge, principal certification from the Citadel, and a doctorate from South Carolina State University. Dr. Hickson also serves on school and district accreditation review teams known as Cognia. Dr. Hickson is the proud mother of 2 adult children. Dr. Hickson, thank you again so much for agreeing to spend time with us today and talk about Florence County District Schools. We're so excited to have you and to host you here in the Continuum, a facility which was built to support your students in your school district. And I'm just really excited to be able to spend some time with you today.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I'm so excited to be here today.
Great. I think it's so interesting that you have grown up in this area and that you attended Florence County schools yourself, and you raised your children in this school district, and now you are educating the students of this community. I'd like for you to talk a little bit about that experience and having grown up here and having returned here as an educator and a leader for the district. And I'd like for you to maybe talk about what has changed over that time since you were a student, then since you were a parent and an educator, and now that you're a leader in this district. What has changed the most over that period of time for you?
Well, growing up here in Lake City, I grew up in a poor household. Mm-hmm. There were 8 siblings. I am the oldest girl of 8 with my parents. My father did not complete 3rd grade because his mother passed away at a young age. So he grew up working on the farm. And my mother did not go past the 11th grade. Mm-hmm. But even though my parents were not educated per se, they knew the value of education. And growing up in my household, my dad, number one, we were not allowed to use the word "I can't." That was just not part of the vocabulary that we were allowed to use in the household. Mm-hmm. So we grew up knowing that we can do anything if we try, if we get an education. And even though he did not have that education, he always said to us, if I had the opportunity to receive the education that you can today and that the young folks can today, I would be a millionaire. So I knew that education was important. And I knew as I grew up and became a mother, parent of two, I knew that how important education was in our household and how important it was to change the trajectory of my entire generation, because I was a first generation college student.
Wow.
So I knew the importance of an education just to change that trajectory. My father always said, your zip code does not define your destiny. And as an educator today and now leader, I use that philosophy with the children that I encounter today. I want them to know, first of all, that they can do anything if they apply themselves. Number two, just being in the role as an educator for now almost 28 plus years, I realize and I know the importance of education and how important it is to ensure that every student has that opportunity.
I love that you share that story with me. And I know that there are others that have similar stories. Personally, I have a very similar story. My father grew up poor in the Philippines and same, valued the education and knew that if he could start a family, come to the United States, start a family, and provide a means of an education for his children, that he would become successful. So I love that story. Thank you for sharing it. Sharing it with us.
Yes.
So was it clear along your trajectory, like for you to come back to Lake City? Was that always a goal of yours, or did something else happen to help you be like, okay, well, I need to go home. I need to help my hometown.
Going away to college, I knew I wanted to serve. Originally, I was going to go into the medical field.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And had a teacher and instructor in college, my sophomore year, who said, you should go into education. There was a research paper we were required to do. And I did my research paper back then on the impact of parent environment, the household, on student achievement. And I was looking at the family dynamics, single family homes and their achievement, and then two-parent homes and their achievement. So even back then, I was looking at how do you look at the dynamics and how do you ensure, regardless to where students come from, that they're successful. So I think just having those type of experiences, those type of adults along the way that instilled education and the importance of education in my life has allowed me or contributed to what I do today as a leader in Florence School District 3.
Right. It has long-ranging impact. I mean,
Absolutely.
I can think of teachers and educators in my own history who really helped shape the trajectory of my career and where I am now. You mentioned the structure of a single family in a normal two-parent household, and informing the development of children. And I know that you do have a focus on child development. Can you talk a little bit about why that's important here in Florence County for this community, the importance and the focus on early childhood development?
Yes. Here in Florence School District 3, it's a high poverty area. In Florence School District 3, we have 8 Title I schools, and we only have 8 schools. So all 8 schools are Title I schools, which means we have high poverty schools. We have a number of our students who come from single parent households or households where they are being reared by a grandmother or grandparent. But, and as a result of that, programs and some of the policies that we put in place are in place so that we can address those the students and make sure that they are successful when they come to us. I just recalled a few years ago, maybe about 5 years ago, so about 5 or 6 years ago, I did a survey with some high school students, and the questions asked were, some of the questions were, do you see yourself in college one day? What career do you see yourself in? Just some, things about education and their future. Right. Well, to my surprise, a lot of the students did not see themselves going to college.
Oh, wow.
It was almost as if college was not attainable for them. So after seeing that survey, it was important for Florence School District 3 to put practices in place, intentional practices in place, to ensure that we were addressing and changing that perception out there of not thinking they could go to college.
Wow. So what were you able to do specifically to put that change forth? Was it just implementing a program with the counselors in the school, or
we did involve the counselors, but one of the things we created back in 2014, 15, we created a college cohort. This was an intentional program that worked with the students on careers, where they're researching careers, they're researching colleges, and they're actually just doing all of the research so that they know the possibilities out there.
Them. Yeah.
And then as a result of that, then we started to not just be concerned about the achievement gap, because yes, there's an achievement gap, but I think that gap is because of the opportunity. There's an opportunity gap.
Right.
And here in Florence School District 3, a lot of our students, they don't get out beyond Florence School District 3. And I think that is one reason why this facility, the Continuum, has just been an asset for Florence School District 3 and this community, because now we don't have to travel to Florence or beyond Florence for students to experience the college atmosphere.
Right. It has decreased or bridged that gap.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That's great.
So now we have more students who are taking college courses. We actually, in 2020, graduated our first cohort. There were 10 students who graduated not just with their high school diploma, but they actually graduated with an associate's degree.
Wow, that's great.
So we're really changing lives, but it's because of the facility like this where we have Francis Marion here as well as Florence Darlington Tech.
That's great. That's wonderful to hear. How many of those students who have been graduating out of your schools stay in this area, and how many go off for more education and come back? Does it seem like they do come back? It seems like the community wants them to come back.
Absolutely. Right now, I don't have the data to support how many are actually coming back, but I do know that there are some coming back.
Okay.
Because we recently hired a couple of graduates back into the school district. As a result of having programs like the welding program and machine tools, we actually have employees in the area that are already
gravitating toward this area.
Gravitating to students they're just waiting for them to graduate.
Wow.
So just by having these opportunities, I think in the future we'll start to see more our workforce develop more in this area, and that the current students will come back and be citizens here.
Right.
But I don't have that data right now.
Oh, no, I completely understand.
Yes.
And, I've talked with other leaders around the state in small communities who have stressed that importance of educating our own students to become the next generation of workforce, to continue that longevity and continuance of community for people not unlike you, who grew up in a hometown and came back to help it thrive and continue. It certainly speaks to the difference of reinvesting in your
Yes,
community,
absolutely.
in your people, rather
Yes.
than, having people come from out of the area and utilize the jobs that are available. It's great to have that reinvestment back in the community. I'd like to just talk a little bit about some of the other challenges. You've talked a little bit about the challenges for students in the Lake City area, but I know that the dynamic of the community is one where the challenges abound on different levels for students. It's not just getting them to school, getting them to take the appropriate courses, getting them to realize the college, could be a path and an aspiration for them. There are other challenges that exist in the community, and I know that the Continuum affords a way for adult education. So, can you talk a little bit about some of the other unique challenges that face Lake City, and maybe how they're being addressed for this particular community?
Yes. I think some of the challenges that we see that come from the community is the social emotional challenges that our students face. It could be from a parent not being employed. During the pandemic, several households, they lost loved ones. So it's a number of reasons that they're facing these social and emotional issues. So what we're doing in Florence School District 3 to support our families, not just our students, but the entire family, is providing that social and emotional support. We actually hired additional social and emotional counselors this year. We have our mental health counselors. We partner with the PD Mental Health so that we're trying to just make sure that we address those social, emotional, and mental concerns that we're faced with.
That's incredible. We talk a lot. We've talked a lot in the past about how schools have to do so much more.
Yes.
These days.
Yes.
And you know that firsthand.
Absolutely. And I really do believe by having this facility here and allowing the community to actually take courses here, once you start to educate more of your citizens, then you're going to see less crimes and less violence and those type things.
Absolutely.
So.
Right. That's great. Well, thank you so much again for sitting down with us and talking with us. It's really been wonderful to get a glimpse of your efforts here and your leadership in Lake City. I'm going to close with one more question. You obviously have been leading for a great deal of your career in education, and you're a working mother. I want to understand what inspires you day to day. It's a hard job that you have to make decisions, to keep your staff motivated, to remember the students are first, and to harness all these resources so that you're providing for an entire community. So is there something that you do on a daily basis or on a regular basis that helps you recharge and keep that inspiration and motivation high so that you pursue success in your...
I think just being around the children, when they start to share their successes, it recharges me. When they share, for example, some of our students that are enrolled here, we actually have the Ethans and some of our students who are in the welding program or in the machine tools program. When we start to hear them say to us, "This has changed my life," then it's worth getting up every day to continue to change lives.
Right. Absolutely. Well, that's great. Well, wonderful. Well, thank you again so much for sharing with us today. It was a true pleasure speaking with you and listening to your stories. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Neal Vincent is Superintendent of Schools in Florence County School District 2. Prior to this position, his experience includes district director, principal, assistant principal, and teacher. Dr. Vincent has earned degrees from East Tennessee State University, Converse College, Clemson University, and the University of South Carolina. He was also part of the original planning effort for the Continuum. Well, Dr. Vincent, thank you again so much for agreeing to be part of our Idea Exchange podcast and talking with us today at the Continuum. We're so excited that you've made time for us. So I appreciate that.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. So you have you've played many roles. We were just talking about your role as an administrator. You've been in education for many years as a teacher, as an administrator, as a principal, and now as superintendent. So how has that breadth of experience, how have those years in different roles within education helped you in your role now as superintendent in leading the community and the students of Florence District 2?
Well, I think each opportunity has given me an advantage because I started as a teacher, of course, and then I worked as a teacher and then worked as an assistant principal in the upstate and then became a principal and then a director. So I've had a typical progression, if you will, but each position has given me the advantage of understanding multiple positions within the school district. And before I moved into education for the time I was 14 until my first year teaching, I worked in fast food. And so I have the operations side of fast food and also
customer service.
Exactly, customer service and cleanliness and all. So I worked with the same group, McDonald's out of Garden City or Myrtle Beach. And so I had great owners and operators, and they set a great example of how to effectively run a business. And so I do think, again, being a teacher, and I was a career technology teacher, and so I taught business and marketing and, of course, all that comes with computer science and those other areas within the business and marketing umbrella. But every position I've had, I think, has prepared me for being a superintendent and understanding each position, how important that position is for a great school district.
Right. To help support a great school district. You have that advantage of having been exposed and possessed different perspectives of all those roles, that function within a district.
Right.
What have been the biggest challenges as you've been that you've seen as superintendent, as you've been here in Florence County?
Sure. I think in Florence, too, our biggest issue is our size. We're small and we have a large portfolio and just it costs more to offer opportunities in a smaller area. And so making sure that our students have the same advantage as all students in the county and across the country. And so that's where we look for shared services or looking for an opportunity to work with a larger system. Right. And so the Continuum is a great example. I mean, it didn't start out, in my mind, the same way. I mean, I was looking for a shared career center. I came from the largest county and largest school district in the county with Florence 1 and moved to one of the smallest or second smallest in the county. And so making sure our students have the same opportunity. We have a great career center on our campus. And we have 6 pathways that you could choose from, or 6 areas of multiple pathways within those 6 areas. But I was looking for other opportunities. Right. And we tried to offer a dual credit on our campus. So when I first arrived, we offered English and math and science. We worked with the teacher, and the teacher got a master's in biology and was able to offer dual credit. So with the dual credit, we were offering multiple dual credit in addition to business and marketing, auto tech, and then electronics. And so many of the programs that you see here, we were trying to offer to our students. But as far as paying for those opportunities, it was quite expensive. And so we were looking to share with other districts. And that's why the Continuum is a great example of a small idea that turned into a larger solution, a bigger solution than I could ever imagine.
That's great. Have you seen the interest in the student enrollment in these particular programs increase, or just the buzz? I mean, has it helped spark interest, and you're finding that enrollment has the numbers have increased?
Great. In the general studies that are offered by Francis Marion, yes. Now, some of our current technology, we've actually decreased because the students have to travel.
Sure.
And so, for example, our electronics, we were averaging 20, but we were only able to place 5 or 6 here. So I think you look at that data and you go, why? And it was the same teacher. The teacher came over to teach electronics here through Florence Darlington Tech. But you look at why, and I think it had to do with travel time or being reluctant to come to a dual credit opportunity because this is a dual credit opportunity. It's a college. And so making sure that students are prepared and the fact that they are aware that it is at a dual credit level, but it is a manageable level. And so that's what we're working on. Also, it requires more with the CTE courses here versus the general studies. Now, general studies would be English, math, social studies, science, and so on. And so with those courses, students are on a Monday, Wednesday, or a Tuesday, Thursday, and the continuum isn't courses aren't meeting unless there's a biology lab on Fridays. And but with our CTE or current technology, the students have to come every day. So they're in welding every day for 2 sections or up until 11 o'clock every day, or they're in HVAC. And so making sure that students are aware that they need to have their high school requirements met before coming to the continuum is also a reason possibly we reduced the number, because we were offering 2 sections, but it was one semester. It wasn't the whole year.
Right.
And so just looking at what is offered to be a completer here or to earn a certificate in HVAC, electronics, or industrial maintenance, is making sure that students are, again, aware of a pathway. And so that we're working through that, because this is only the 3rd year.
Right.
And so you have to start in the 9th grade year. So our numbers have increased. So that's just an example of looking through our curriculum and looking at our portfolio of courses and going, well, this is what you're going to have to do in order to take HVAC at the continuum, because it will take multiple days and both semesters pretty much as a year-long course.
Right. Making sure the students understand the commitment and then are further ready to juggle.
The planning, the career planning, and make sure what is it you want to do post-secondary, and here's the plan to achieve that pathway.
Right. And then are you able to further help them, after they graduate, like help place them in some of those roles in the community, in the workforce?
Well, most definitely. And that's another advantage of the continuum, is because workforce development is here and working with the administration here.
Right.
And so the placement is not an issue. We're just getting more interest, especially in industrial maintenance. With a title like industrial maintenance, a lot of times our students think that may be a janitorial pathway, but it's more than that. It's pneumatics and gears, and it's pretty much machine type focus there. And so if I had my way, I would change the name of the course to something along the lines of electronics versus industrial maintenance, but that's what the state calls it. And so making sure we educate students on what it
actually is.
Course is, and there's 100% placement there. There are employers here in our area who are asking for students out of that program because they need machinists and repair people to do repairs right away on similar lines and manufacturing areas.
Right. They know that the continuum and your schools are providing that resource, that workforce resource for them. So they track it. I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, it's a pipeline.
And
having the pipeline and making sure students are aware of the pipeline is what we're doing now. So again, it's a refocus. We have more students. We didn't have the opportunities or the equipment that obviously is provided here, and the collaboration that we have with the Darla Moore Foundation, Francis Marion, Florence Darlington Tech, and the State Department of Education. And so it's a very unique opportunity of making sure our students are aware how unique it is.
Right.
And that way they can get possibly 2 years ahead in their career goals by attending here the 11th and 12th grade years.
So you talked about this partnership between these stakeholder groups. How do you think, and you've worked in other areas of the state, Garden City, we talked about Dorman in Spartanburg. How do you think that this can be replicated in other parts of the state, this special, unique partnership, this agreement between these higher education entities, smaller, school districts, business partners? I mean, you have to have that economic support. But do you think that other areas of the state could benefit from a partnership like this?
Most definitely. Other areas of the state, they have something similar called career centers or shared career centers that are recognized by the state, and they're funded by the state. So I think our job as superintendents and as stakeholders here with the Continuum is making sure that this model is duplicated and doing all that we can to share with our peers the success that we have. And we're still working on the trends. I mean, we have to get the trends together. But to my knowledge, it's very unique. I mean, there are other colleges, technical systems, in the technical system, colleges or technical colleges. And I'm sure there are other 4-year colleges or 2-year colleges doing something similar, but to my knowledge, it's not as unique as what is here. And it takes finances. I mean, that's why it's very important that we give the thanks to the Darla Moore Foundation for providing this opportunity. I mean, it takes making sure people are aware and put together on the same group, and that ideas are shared and everyone has an equal voice.
Right.
And sharing the ideas to create the collaboration that we have here in the PD. And who would think that it would be here in Lake City? I mean,
Right,
that's how I look at it. I mean, it's so exciting that when I started 6 years ago, we were having these conversations, and it was a vision by the foundation then,
Right.
and by Ms. Moore when I've met with her that she was going to build a center in the PD in Lake City, and if we want to be a part of that, we need to share services with Lake City.
Yeah.
And made it very clear. And then, of course, Dr. Carter, and then Dr. Dillard, and then Mr. Pate, both with the technical system, have provided this great opportunity for our students. And it's a win-win for everybody involved.
It's great. We're so excited really because of that collaborative vision, that came together. Let's talk a little bit about that. When you all were forming the vision for the program, obviously the stakeholder group came together, had multiple meetings. They listened to the community for the needs, to really pinpoint the workforce needs. Was there any were there any challenges when the ideas were forming from the community? Was there any pushback, any skepticism? To you and me who operate in the education realm, this is like a no-brainer. Of course, we see the success, but sometimes, it takes some massaging of the message. It takes, to cross the aisle, if you will, for skeptics or people who aren't sure, if it's really required.
I don't recall, I think selling it to our school boards that we're going to send, we're going to bus students, we're going to provide a bus, and they can drive. And that was not new to me. I've worked with a regional career center in the upstate as a teacher and administrator. And so that wasn't new to me, or even in Florence, one as a director of secondary education, and then as a principal. So I was used to a regional career center. But if you think about a rural area, we in Florence 2 or Florence 5, we provided the career and technology courses or the dual credit courses that were on our campus. Our students had the opportunity to go to the main campus at Florence Darlington Tech, but that was a 40-minute ride one way. And so once they graduate, it's 40, 45 minutes. I mean, they have to, but in high school, most did not take advantage of that. So I thought it was very important when I became superintendent to pull the dual credit courses and take teachers we had on staff or get teachers credentialed. And so that was our first way of filling in the gap. But to have an opportunity to have larger classes and share resources made more sense. And again, it cost us more to try to do what we're doing here now. So with our school board, it was easy to sell because I could go, hey, we'll pay all the students' tuitions. We probably won't be able to cover books. We'll cover some books as we can with grants and other allocations, but we'll cover all the students' tuition, and it'll be cheaper than the dual credit courses we're offering on campus. And so it wasn't hard to sell, but then there also was some concerns about, well, we have a school resource officer. Does the Continuum have a school resource officer? And we have administrators we know. Does the Continuum have administrators? And they don't. They don't have a school resource officer here, and they don't have a school administrator dedicated to them. But they do have a supportive faculty and staff that was handpicked by the presidents of the institutions who provide the courses here. And so there's a lot of time, I think, in selecting the right teachers and the right courses and having the right counselors here and making it a very supportive environment. The unintended consequence about having the center here is sometimes we don't see our juniors and seniors as often because they come here. And they come on Fridays and they meet here. It is rare that many of them will even come on the campus. Now, we're fortunate that athletics, they're still involved with athletics as far as participating, which is common for a small rural school. And because we have many teams that it's rare you're cut from a team. And so if you want to participate in athletics, you can. And we still see see the students' athletic events, but during the day, they would rather come here. And so that was one of those, should we require a course be on campus so we stay connected as we've done before in previous districts that I worked in, or do we just let this be their new school, their choice school?
Their new home school.
This is their new school, where they, of course, have to be enrolled with us to benefit from dual credit and for accountability reasons and all, and testing and all. But, and they have their core that they will receive. But once you get to your senior year, it's possible for you to come here full time. And so we may lose the day-to-day interaction, but the benefits they receive here far exceeds the traditional
right.
or the traditions of a high school student.
Right.
So I think that was a selling point for some parents too. Was, okay, I want my child to experience all the traditions that I experienced as a high schooler. When we're saying, okay, well, they can still experience those and come to homecoming activities or pep rallies or after school activities or participate. But this would be their new school if they want it to be. Or they could take an elective or another course on the campus. It's up to them, whether it's on. But the partnerships too between friends from across the county and across the region, because this truly is a regional campus. It's not even just Florence County.
Right.
And so it's allow our students to meet other folks that they possibly wouldn't have met being in a small district with 325 students.
That's
great. I mean, just the social interaction and getting to know more folks who are like-minded and academics, I think is very beneficial too.
That's great. Listening to you talk about, the Students' Day, and it harkens back to when I was in school, probably when you were in school, very traditional structure day.
Right.
Went to the same school, was there, did the extracurriculars, was there, And so now we're talking about students who have the capability of having a homeschool, but having a support facility where they may spend some of their time and then eventually more of their time during their high school track. And then we also have virtual learning, which is another dimension, really, of complementing the entire school experience. And I didn't have virtual learning, and neither did you. So the face of our education experience is changing.
Right.
It's changing, and it's even changed so dramatically in the last 2 years. And I know that technology is important to your district and having the right technological support. Do you ever think about the future of? I'm sure you think about the future of education and the structure of these days. Like, it's becoming hybridized. How much more hybridized do you think it'll become? Like in 20 years, you may still be doing this in 20 years.
I would be doing this in 20 years.
Yeah.
A few more years until I plan to retire.
Yeah.
But
do you think it'll still be like a hybrid situation like this, or do you think we'll be a little more scattered? I
think the pandemic taught us that students need social interaction.
Yes. Yeah.
All people need social interaction. I mean, some prefer more or less, depending on your preference.
Right.
But we discovered, I don't think, in my opinion, we always thought that there would be a virtual component that students would enjoy, even down to 5K, 4K. And there are options in our state with virtual schools that are charter schools mainly. But we have discovered that most students prefer and parents prefer to have the social interaction at school with the ones we were servicing. Now, there could be some homeschool choice that I don't know about, but most of our students prefer to be face-to-face. That's the preference. And we have a few. Currently, we have 5 in virtual school in a partnership with the Low Country Consortium. But other than those 5, we don't offer any virtual unless it's through the virtual South Carolina program. And even here at the Continuum, there are courses that are virtually taught or online courses through Francis Marion. So we put out all of the different options, and you pick and choose what's best for you.
Right.
And so, again, I think most of our students and our parents, especially with childcare, a lot of times with the younger students, and not that we're the childcare, but childcare would be an issue if you were doing virtual.
Sure.
Or a grandparent may have to be there. And some grandparents are tech savvy, some are not. Some want to do academics, some don't. And so I think just giving the options of face-to-face, and that's what you have here at the Continuum. You can go face-to-face for certain courses. You go online.
Right.
Now, of course, a CTE, some of the classwork could be online, but you're going to have to have checkoffs. And so you're going to have some face-to-face.
Right. Especially for when we talk about, and I know project-based learning is important, STEM learning is important in your district. And so much of that really has to be face-to-face and hands-on,
It does. It really is.
In person, hands-on. So,
and that's why you have a lab here on Fridays for the biology.
That's right.
For example, one of the few classes that we'll meet on a Friday here would be the biology lab. So it's still important. And that biology class is taught face-to-face, but last year it was taught online. And the instructor actually was an instructor who used to work with our students, and then he moved out of the state, but continued teaching online. And so there's a component where you could teach certain items and topics online, but eventually you're going to have to be able to perform.
Right.
And so that's why it's important also to have a hybrid course where you do maybe the content online and then the labs face-to-face. So I think that picking and choosing the choices that are there And I think having a larger partnership that we have here with the Continuum allows us to offer more.
Yeah.
Versus what we're just able to do with 325 students. We're looking at
Right, in one
approximately
facility. Yeah.
9 high schools, for example, that are here, maybe 9 or 10 now.
Yeah.
And the ideas of all of those high schools coming together with the Florence Darlington Tech and Francis Marion faculty and staff to make a great opportunity for all students in this area.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So in closing, I want to ask you one last question. You've found some great stride and great success in being a superintendent. And you were recently nominated as the Superintendent of the Year by the School Board Administration Association. I want to ask what you feel like your biggest strength is as a superintendent, and then how you recharge your energy and your motivation to get up and do what you do day to day, because you've been doing this a long time, but you look like a younger person to me. So I know there's a road ahead of you, and I know you will continue to influence students going forward.
Well,
So
I appreciate your kind words, but I think to recharge, you just work with students. What's best for students? Students, engagement, student success is what we're here for, is what drives us, what motivates us, but also collaborating. I think that's why we have the facility we have here. I had a small idea, didn't realize there were other people with bigger ideas around. And so I was just looking for a regional career center, and never really talked about dual credit, not involving Florence Darlington Tech or Francis Marion. In fact, one of the conversations was based off of penny sales tax, and our penny sales tax here, it has a part that the commissioners, which would be Florence Darlington Tech, could create a CTE. And that goes back to when I was in Florence 1 talking with a director who happened to be on county council. We were talking about a vision about having a countywide, or at least a modern career center to serve a regional career center. So it's amazing how these seeds were planted years ago, and then here we are today.
Right.
But just having an opportunity for all students in our area to experience career technology and higher academics or higher level academics with dual credit, if they're prepared.
Right.
Now, of course, we're still offering remediation. We're still taking care of all students, but we don't want anyone to have a boring senior year. We want to make sure they have opportunities, because once they leave us and go to the freshman year of college, there sometimes is an issue there because they've had a transition.
Yeah.
And so that transition sometimes becomes an issue. So making sure that our students have opportunities, we don't require yet. The state's looking at a math or English or computer science the senior year, but this is an opportunity to provide those provide students with those courses here in a higher ed model, and it saves money. I give you story after story. We have students who are now in their third year of college, going on to get a master's degree because they're enjoying college, don't want to give up that fourth year. Or some have been able to move forward in pharmacy school through a partnership with Francis Marion and University of South Carolina. And so there's all sorts of success stories we could share at a later time. But I do appreciate the opportunity to share with you our thoughts on the success we've had with the Continuum.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a pleasure hearing about them and learning about them. And we're excited to be able to share them with our audience as well.
Great.
Thank you, Dr. Vincent.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this in-depth series exploring how this new type of school in Lake City, South Carolina is redefining education. Idea Exchange, the Future of K-12 Education podcast series, is brought to you by McMillan Paston Smith. The K-12 studio at McMillan Paston Smith is focused on helping schools prepare future-ready students. Have a question for me or a topic you'd like to address? Please complete the contact form listed in the episode description.